Good day. I'm Dave,
And I'm Dave.
and this is the OFFSITE
Insight.
Podcast.
Today's episode is brought to you by the Creative Co-op. Please reach out to Gino and the team if you have other advertising or marketing needs at tcco.ca.
Today, we're with Jeanette Heywood from YouthReach. Hi, Jeanette. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you both doing?
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming in here. I want to jump right into it.
Fantastic.
Tell me what YouthReach is, what's your mission, and I hear there's a new strategic plan.
There is. It is a pathway to growing opportunities, and YouthReach is about a little over 11 years old. And all we do is we provide grants for kids to go into extracurricular activities that their families can't afford. And the growth in the families facing financial barriers is increasing annually. So since we started, we have awarded almost 2,500 grants, and that's pretty good in 10 years. However, the new strategic plan says we want to do another 2,500, so double the amount in half the time, which is going to require huge support from our community to help these families. And that's why I'm here today to tell our story.
Fantastic. I mean, I have kids and they're in sports, and I understand the ever increasing costs to be associated with them, but I also, believe in the value of it.
Yeah.
Right. There's tremendous value that you get in those extra, not just necessarily sports, but piano or dance or whatever the case may be.
And that's one of the few things, we are one of the few organizations that embraces the arts. There are funding organizations that do incredible work, but they are very specific into sports.
Right.
And our board of directors said, no, that's not good enough. We're going to go across the spectrum, and arts is our second category of most requested grants.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess most of the time youth support does kind of come in the form of athletics. I'm more
It
the
does.
arts oriented person, so that's
Yeah.
nice to know.
Especially traditional sports. So your hockey, your soccer, lacrosse, as your son plays, it's not as popular yet.
No.
But it is definitely picking up somewhat. But dance has really taken off in terms of, and dance can outcost hockey sometimes.
It absolutely can. I have a friend who has 2 daughters and is like, yeah, show me your hockey bills. No problem.
Exactly. Yes.
So, this leads us into have you seen the demand change a lot in the last few years?
Absolutely.
And is there a specific demographic that you're like, oh, is it new people to Canada, or how does that work? And what have you noticed over the last few years?
So 25% of our grants right now are new settled families that are arriving in Canada, which is awesome, and very much in the south end of Simcoe County. So we provide grants for the entire region. And we are seeing the increase in new families coming to Canada who are using activities as a way of connecting and building community. What we're also seeing now that we have been graciously permitted to give our information through both the public school board and the Catholic school board is we are setting record numbers of grants. We just set the highest month ever since we started with 46 grants coming through. And so it's the schools are helping us get directly into the families, but it also is depleting resources very quickly. So we need our community support to be able to give us the money to do the work that we're doing.
Fantastic. I know that's an incredible number when I think about that. 46 families really that you're changing, because it's not just the kid that's
Absolutely.
in my mind, it's not just the kid who gets to do this new fun thing and gain the skills and confidence, but it's also the parents who are there watching, and they get to talk with other parents. And
Exactly.
there's so much community, as you've said, that comes out of those small interactions once a week.
100%. And that's what we look at is, as much as we're about funding the activity, that's not what it's about. It is about being able to invest in a youth that they start to feel more confident, they're more resilient, they're trying to make better choices, that the parent or grandparent, we do have a very high number of grandparents who are raising kids in our community right now. And they're in an environment that they wouldn't normally be in. And so their networks are changing, their influences are changing, and they're making better decisions as well. And that's what it's about, is being able to empower our youth to make better choices that lead to their inner leader being activated.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's beautiful. I fully subscribe to this. I've talked about it on the podcast before with some of our other great community members. Yes, the simple answer is it keeps kids out of trouble, but it does so much more
It
than
does.
right? Because they start keeping themselves out of trouble.
And we have done the work about figuring out what investments in extracurriculars, that's always a hard word to say, pays off in terms of the community. And for every dollar that's invested in the child going into a program, there's a $24 net return. So what that means is you're keeping a child in school. They're feeling motivated about making difficult choices for themselves. Their leadership skills are growing. Their resiliency is growing. They're coming out of opportunities that could put them in the youth justice system or keep them in the social service sector. We're all about literally lifting up and coming out of poverty, and that's what we hope to do with the next generation of kids that are in these programs. We've been funding for 10 years. We have about a 32% revisiting or reapplications. We even have a couple of families that we still have grants all the way along those 10 years. So it's kind of cool to see. I always say it's a good news and sad news situation at the same time. We are exceeding our targets for numbers, which is great for, the reports that we have to provide for funders and granting agencies. But it also speaks to what's happening in our community and how that divide of being able to have the opportunity to be in activities is harder and harder.
Yeah.
And more families are falling into that. Yeah.
So where do you receive most of your resources? You said that you are active in all of Simcoe County?
Yep. We fundraise our butts off. We have a signature event every year, and it's coming up on May 29th called An Evening in the Garden, and it's based out of Braystone Farm on Ninth Line in Oro. And that is our signature fundraising event that gives us about, I would say, 2/3 of the money that we give every year. Then we write grants, whether it is to the county for funding, whether it is to the private family foundations. We've been super fortunate to receive a 5-year grant from a family foundation that gives us some constant in our funding. But we have a board who's committed to never saying no. Our tagline is "Say yes to a kid." So we constantly have to drive and strive for being able to keep money coming in so that we can send it out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you've got this great big event planned. I think it sounds like it's something you've done a number of times before. I would imagine the venue may be somewhat new.
No, Braystone Farm has been our host for the last, I would say, 5 years.
Oh, fantastic.
And it is a beautiful setting in the rolling hills of Orem. Yes, it is. So our guests come together, our supporters come together. We tell some stories. Last year we had the Police Chief Johnson with us to really tell the story of what's happening in our communities and what our kids are facing. We hope to have either him or a representative back because the world is not getting easier for our kids. The mental health epidemic that is our kids are facing, they need support and they need an outlet. And so that will be our night to tell the stories and ask people to give with their hearts and say yes to a kid.
That's fantastic. And it's part of it, as you mentioned, is building that resiliency because it's not going to get any easier. It continues to get harder. I like to think every generation, I think, gets it easier, but sometimes I'm not sure if that's the case anymore.
It doesn't feel like that right now. I think the pandemic was huge in terms of putting pressures on kids and trying to come back into the schools. And there's actually data that has proven that through that pandemic, the mental health or the mental development of a child has actually been progressed about a year. And so teachers are trying to not only teach the curriculum, but they're also having to work with teaching children how to be more empathetic and to actually move that needle forward in brain development. And so it's a lot of pressure on a lot of kids. And when you're not in an environment where you have the safest of places at home, for whatever reason, whether it's financial security or anything else, kids need an outlet and they need to be a part of each other's environments to lift each other up as well. So that's what we do and why we do it.
Absolutely. And now, is there any sort of opportunity some of us might be inclined to help donate?
Yeah.
How do they do that? And B, is there other ways that people can be involved in YouthReach and helping the organization and saying yes to a kid?
Donations are always welcome. We are really trying to increase our monthly donations. So you can sign up for that on our website at youthreach.ca. Easy to find us. But we are also looking for ambassadorship. As much as we say we serve the county, we serve families throughout the county. but we do not have ambassadors throughout the county. And so we are trying to get our brand awareness built. And it's come up a lot, but we still need to and we need people to tell our story for us. And personally, I believe in the time, talent, and treasure is being able to give us your time, which is your ambassadorship. Give us your talents. We're always looking for help around bringing our strategic plan to life, which you can also find on our website. And then your treasure is please donate. You're not saying yes to just YouthReach. You're saying yes to families throughout the county of Simcoe.
There's a tangible impact.
There absolutely is.
And so what does the commitment look like? I look at, the Simcoe County Homebuilders Association. We have, a growing membership. How does someone from the Simcoe County Homebuilders Association become an ambassador? What does that look like? Tell everyone, how do we get involved?
You reach out to me,
Yeah.
and we will get you started. You can attend our event on May 29th to learn more about us. And I think that is the beauty of that event is when we have people walking in who really don't know what YouthReach is, they walk in and they learn what we're all about. And then we're happy to do a presentation to anyone to educate. Every child can receive up to $300 in a 12-month period. So if you're thinking about how do you say yes to a kid, just multiply 300 by how many kids you want to say yes to. And we will be very happy to get that money out to those families. That's the easiest way. But everything that we have is on our website and our social channels are alive. But being able to think about a charity of choice when you're building a development, you want to recognize and bring some awareness to that community. We're happy to share our brand. We're happy to share our story. Put our logo everywhere for you. We do also have a backlink that if you want to support YouthReach, we have a button that you can put on our website. And people who visit you can easily find us and say, why are you supporting YouthReach?
Right.
And you'll come right to our website to find out why.
And there's obviously a fantastic reason. It's like, oh, okay, this company in a lot of ways gets it. They're really trying to support the next generation.
100%. One of the things that we want to investigate is the world of corporate social responsibility, is truly having a CSR partnership where an organization, a company believes in kids, wants to raise their boats, invests in that mission. Walk alongside us, help us, and we'll help you raise your boat as well because you believe in kids.
That's fantastic. So, we talked about it a little bit, getting involved, but what does a truly supportive community mean to YouthReach?
Oh, that's simple. Put us out of business. That is what a truly supportive community means. And it's not just about activities, is if it's not, if your passion wasn't about putting a child in an activity, but put food on their table, put a roof over their heads, which you're already doing, but make it accessible. That is truly, to me, what a community looks like is you don't need us. We don't need to be here. So help us do that.
Fantastic. And that kind of leads us into the next question that I might have. And Dave, feel free. I feel like I've taken any.
No, honestly, we're doing a great job.
I had a wonderful night of sleep. Okay, I ready to say the same about you. But
You're talking to the development community, builders, tradespeople, renovators. But we also have the ear sometimes of policymakers. What do we all need to understand a little bit better about youth needs? Because, you're coming here about one specific thing, but I'm sure there's lots of topics that we need to focus on when it comes to youth.
The guiding principles I always look at are two. One is the social determinants of health, where the individual is put in the center and all of the services that wrap around, whether it is healthy employment, healthy housing, access to healthy food, access to water, access to mental health supports, is the individual lives in the center. So that's one of the lenses we look through at YouthReach of how we're serving our community. And so I think that helps make anyone, policymakers, need to be understanding the social determinants of health. And then because we specialize and work with children, we are also huge advocates of the UN Rights of the Child and also the Search Institute, which presents 44 developmental assets, both internal and external. And what it does is it helps understand the development of a healthy mind and healthy body of a child into adulthood. And if you are familiar with those, then you will be making good decisions. If you are not familiar with those, then in my mind, you're leaving gaps in service. And I think our communities need to come together with those tools to actually look at how does every individual in community, whether they are a child, an adult that's struggling, a senior who's facing isolation, how do you put them in the center and fill those gaps and wrap them with love? That's what it's about.
Beautiful.
Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Oh.
You're clearly really well educated and well spoken, and yeah, I want to know a little bit more about your background.
My background is, that's a difficult question. Because I never stopped to think about it. I was a young not single, I was a young teenage mom. And getting through that, I was lucky to have the support of the father of my children. But I stopped going to school for a while to raise my kids. And then I went back in. And being a young mom alone for much of it is very difficult. And so the education I undertook brought me into the charitable sector, into serving community. And I worked at the YMCA for a long time throughout the province and have just been an advocate to improve community. And that's what I believe in. There are a lot of young women who are me.
Hmm.
They need to be lifted up. And hopefully, if I do my work and my gift to give back, hopefully then at some point I will leave a stronger community. That is me.
2,505 years.
Yes, 2,505 years. It is, it's daunting, but it's doable. But the only way it's doable is if your hearts ignite and you invest in your kids and your community. And the one question I always ask is if you are lucky enough to keep a solid roof over your head, food on the table, you're able to put your kids in whatever you want. Think about those kids sitting in their desks at school. Probably for every 5 of kids like yours, there's at least one that is ours. What do you want those kids to have to feel like what you want your kids to feel like? And if you can close your eyes and think about that, that to me is how we will change our community, whether it is through our activities or through some of the amazing work that other charities are doing to make sure that children have a safe place to thrive. That's what we need to do.
I mean, I don't, there's not a whole lot to top on that because passionate and you've gone about it in a systematic way to, something that I wholeheartedly agree with. Like, let's invest in that next generation and give them the opportunities that many of us had when we were kids. And in a lot of ways, it was easier. I like to think it was easier for my parents, but I can imagine.
Different. There weren't as many external pressures, social media being a big one. I don't think you were running around at 10 or 11 years old with a phone, taking pictures of everything or having to worry that you're being taken a picture of.
Yeah.
Or the amount of bullying that our kids face. Yes, there's always been that, but I think the levers of what social media and the world we're living in at this exact moment in time is putting pressure on.
Yeah.
You didn't have to wake up and think about there are bombs dropping on the planet as we sit here right.
Right.
How does that feel to a child who's thinking about their future? So we need to think about how do their minds thrive and take that pressure off of them. Yeah, they're growing up a little too fast in my mind. I think every child should be outside eating a pound of dirt a year.
Yeah.
And so get them outside, get them off the devices, get them engaging.
Yeah.
I love the new campaign that's coming out of, I think it's Emma, Maple Leaf Sports, I think is doing it, where they're turn off your devices. And seeing that approach is kids need to be kids. And we need to stop putting pressure on kids to be more. Let them be kids because they're pretty cute when they are.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I coached hockey this past year and I told the parents, like, my goal for the end of this season is that every kid signs up for hockey next year.
Yep.
Because they love it. They enjoyed it. Yes, we're going to work hard and we're going to work on our resiliency and we're going to work on, I talk to them a lot about, it's not about what happens on the ice. It's everything else that happens. How do you walk through the lobby at the arena? I want people to be like, oh, those are some respectful kids.
Yes.
It's the lesson that they're going to take a lot longer with them than how to shoot a puck.
Yes.
And so it was really cool. And I think, there's some kids that decided, I'm going to really enjoy this. I'm going to try out for rep.
Yep.
And to me, that's a leap of faith. Like, a kid has enough confidence to go try and fail.
Yes.
That's beautiful when you think about it.
The best lessons come. It's never a mistake unless you start repeating it. I've always believed that if you make a mistake, if something goes wrong, it's not a mistake. What did you learn from it? Try it again. If you tweak it, the third time we're going to start talking mistakes. But in the learning of what happens that is wrong or causes you to think differently, that's how success happens, because you won't do it the same way twice. You always do something.
Absolutely. No, yeah. I mean, I find with my kids too, it's sometimes they want to get perfect. It's like, hey, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. Like,
Yeah.
think of where you were last year. Think of
Exactly.
the skills that you've gained in the last 12 months or from 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
It's a little bit better every day.
Perfection doesn't exist.
It absolutely does not. And I think to your point earlier, social media gives the impression that it does exist in a lot of cases. And I worry my kids aren't quite there yet, but that 14 to 18 age, when there's a lot of social anxiety and there's a lot of pressure, and social media is not something that you can necessarily just turn off. It is there with you from the time you wake up till the time you go to bed. And there is this idea that there is perfection to strive for, and that's exhausting.
It is, and I think every little one needs a T-shirt that says "Gepo," good enough, push on. Because it's like that mantra in the mirror in the morning is, "I'm here. I'm doing the best I can. I've got to keep pushing on." We've seen that success. We actually, and I've been given permission by this young man to share his story. He is a recipient of our grants, and he was raised by the most incredible mom, single mom who has 4 kids in total. And they've all come through YouthReach. First as Kid Sport before we became YouthReach, but he actually went through a program that we have called our Youth Wing Ambassadorship, where he had to create his own leadership development plan, present it to me, and then present it to the board to ask for an increase in funding. And his skill was trampoline and mini trampoline. He competed at provincial and national levels. He won medals. He was absolutely incredible. But it wasn't about that. It was he became a coach. He became invested in the kids who were coming up. He then carried on and went to Laurentian University and graduated from that with honors. And he is right now at DeGroote Business School, finishing his MBA. But a full circle moment is this young man has now joined our board. He broke every cycle. He is taking down barriers for kids in his environment in schools, but he is now on our board making decisions about children in our community. And that is what we hope happens for our kids. That's what I hope happens for any young person who is desiring to make our place a better world. I think I said this when we were chatting earlier, is when you have new little ones arrive on the planet, it gives me hope that there is one of those little peanuts that will grow into someone who changes the world. Because that is the belief I have, is you raise them well, you give them opportunity, and they will change the world. Just get out of their way. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful advice, beautifully spoken. I mean, I'm a father myself, and I share a similar philosophy. And as parents, we know that we're not perfect. And if your phrase there is good enough, push on, is part of it. And I'm a firm believer of apologizing when I know, hey, you know what, guys, my reaction there wasn't what it should have been, or I said this, and what I really meant was this. But I wanted to make sure you knew what I really meant, because it's hard. It's hard to be perfect, and you can't be a perfect parent. And I do not expect perfection from my kids, that's for sure. But sometimes, they put pressure on themselves, and that's okay. You need to have pressure in some respects, but you got to make sure there's a healthy boundary there.
Exactly. Even when in their case, what do they want to do? Everyone wants, for their careers. You see so much influence put onto, you've got to go to university, you've got to get a degree, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And it's like, no, if you like working with your hands, go work with your hands. If you like building things, get into the trades. If you are an artist, go be an artist. There are so many non-traditional streams to follow about furthering the education and the passion that keeps them alive and keeps them thriving. And I know that with the industry that you're working in, the vacancy rate and trying to find good people to build houses, and we need them, kids need to consider how the trades can actually change their lives as well. So I'm a strong believer in whatever the child decides for themselves, drive, just go.
It's that self-determination, right? And to your point, it's so easy to see some days when I was an accountant in my previous life, and I still am, but it's hard to step back from your computer and think you've accomplished a whole lot that day. The numbers are still just on the spreadsheet. But if you're, framing a wall or doing electrical or, doing plumbing, it's like, oh, look, this house is going to have lights that turn on now because of what I've done today.
Exactly.
Right. And that's powerful.
And the brains you need to figure that out. I don't know how electricians and plumbers and it's like, oh my goodness, now I don't want to put stress in the challenge. So realize it. I think there's a misnomer and a label on the trades that needs to come off. It needs to be recognized that is equal to whatever someone comes through with an MBA. It's equal. It's just a very different realm that it was
A skill set.
exactly 100%. Yeah.
So, and I think it's changing. I think we're getting there. We're going down that path. And, I always think there's no such thing as unskilled labor. There's no such thing. There are people who have an artistry about what they do. Whether you're a drywall finisher, like, trust me, I've tried.
So it's not pretty.
And once you've tried it, you can have a better appreciation for, oh, wow, that's actually art. When you think about it, like, and you don't think about that all the time, but this wall in your house, there is artistry in that.
Absolutely.
Appreciation of the beauty in the simplicity of the finished product, because you don't understand sometimes what blood, sweat, and tears went into that wall
Exactly.
until you've given it a try at least.
Sometimes literally
Yeah.
gets rid of.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. And to me, drywall is always the one thing that I'm always amused with because I have patched walls, having raised 2 little boys. And it's like, no, that's not looking good. I have to call someone.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. No, it is. I think, there are so many opportunities ahead for our children. They just need to have the courage and the support, the adult allyship. I'm a huge believer in adult allyship. And not necessarily the parent isn't always the best ally for a child. They'll find their ally. And if they choose youth, stand strong with them because that is one of the most important relationships. So, when I think about the trades and the apprenticeship and the allyship that you work it, that to me is thriving. And it just more of that needs to happen. I remember we were in Barcelona and we had gone to Sagrada Familia, the large cathedral that is finally going to be finished this year. And we were waiting to go in for the tour and it was a shift change. And you watched the back gates of the construction open. And there would be a gentleman who was probably in his late 50s, early 60s. And he was having a vibrant conversation with 3 or 4 young men and young women as well. It was their apprenticeship relationship and their allyship. That to me was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, is in terms of just that transference of skills, but done with respect and allyship. And I believe that happens in your world every day,
Absolutely.
but people don't understand that it happens.
Right.
That's a great context as well.
It is.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible. And I think about the workmanship that goes into that kind of tile setting. It's going to become a lost art if it doesn't get transferred. So come on, let's go. Yes. And if you're teaching it, that would be good because I would patch drywall.
It's funny how our conversations very frequently start out specific and then they become broad about human connection, essentially, and the passing down of knowledge, which is something that humans are uniquely good at, and I think in the animal world. But that's where you find a lot of beauty. It's just these people who happen to work together, sharing stories and information and knowledge that gets passed down. So not just one generation, but those four kids, I'm going to call them, will one day be that 55-year-old person who's passing it down again, right? So,
Yeah, 100%. I think that's, you've asked me earlier about my life. That is the only way I have survived my life, is by having 2 of the most incredible adult allies who stood by me through not great situations as a kid. So
Are they?
yes, it's one of them still, I believe, travels with me still, but that's just a weird thing. But you can't, if you want to break a cycle where it is not ideal, sometimes you have to look outside and walk to that person to say help. And I was lucky to have that. So there we go.
amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jeanette,
You're very welcome.
coming in, for sharing your story, for sharing YouthReach's story, for sharing some of the incredible journeys that the kids that you've supported have gone on.
Absolutely. And I would challenge our community, the builders community. You're about building homes and opening doors for homes. Just get the kids ready for what you want them to do and invest in us.
Absolutely.
Say yes to a kid. So that's simple.
Kid.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we nailed it, Dave.
I think we nailed it.
If you'd like to join the podcast as a guest or you'd like to sponsor an episode, or if you'd like to reach out to Jeanette, you can reach out to us through podcast@schba.ca. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. We have to get our message in.